Hi, welcome to another episode of The Last Remark. I am Rebecca Kahak. I am the Ree in The Last Remark.
And I am Marcus Jewett. I am the Mark in The Last Remark. And again, thanks for joining us today. We are rolling right along with our episodes. Again, I'll say it at the beginning. I'll probably say it a few times as we roll through, but you can follow us on all of the major social channels at The Last Remark Podcast. So please be on the lookout for that. And of course, you can see our videos on YouTube. So follow them there as well as subscribe. Again, we have the audio versions that will be on podcast platforms pretty soon. But hey, things are off and going. So as we always do, let's kick it off with our opening segment called Kitchen Table Talk. So Rebecca, what is your kitchen table talk today?
Okay, well, my kitchen table talk today it's a very light topic. However, I got to tell you, man, and especially during this dang pandemic, my husband and I have struggled with our Wi-Fi and having a signal that's strong enough that both of us can be doing Zoom calls at the same time and complete the calls, leave our cameras on, like all the things. I actually had a one-on-one with my big boss this week, and not only did I have to turn my camera off, but then I couldn't even continue to use Zoom. I mean, we were to the point to where we were resetting our router several times a day. And I just really got fed up with it. And I called, so we use Google Fiber, and I called Google, and I just pled to them, and I was like, listen, I don't want to go somewhere else, but this is not sustainable. We can't continue to conduct our jobs professionally if we can't, do the basic function, which are web calls. And they literally had a technician out within 2 hours. They had an advanced tech that came out. He fixed a whole lot of things that were wrong that we didn't realize were wrong. And we've had techs out before when we've complained about our issues. So this particular tech, I don't know, he was just laser focused on getting us up and running. And I'll be doggone, our speeds have been in the 900s consistently. And I mean, I'm telling you, man, we were so excited. As a matter of fact, I took a shower after the tech left. I took a shower, and when I came out of the shower, my husband was nowhere to be found. His office is upstairs, mine is downstairs. And I knew it. I was like, he's upstairs playing with our new internet that works so well. And he told me I came downstairs and he was so excited. He goes, I just downloaded a tech that was like 200 slides and it only took like 5 seconds.
Wow. That is cool.
We had a big dinner. We went out to dinner last night to celebrate the cats of Wi-Fi again.
Congratulations.
I know it's silly, but oh man, you just don't know what a weight off of my shoulders that is. It's huge.
Listen, the way, the world is changing for those of us who work from home or, use the internet for important purposes throughout life, professionally and personally. I mean, it's essential to have good, reliable, sustainable internet. And it's kind of one of those things, you don't know what you're missing until you don't have it. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, great to see that you and your family are made back whole as it relates to the internet, right? 900 megabits per second. Is it 900?
Yeah, it's 900.
Oh, wow. That's
900. I mean, we oftentimes when we do our speed test, the speed test just fails because our service has been horrible.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyways, what you got going on? What's going on in your world?
I tell you what. So since you kind of opened up the can of worms with technology, I'm going to stay on that same tip. And I am blown away. And I'm certain if you haven't been under a rock, you've heard about ChatGPT and just AI and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And just where that's headed. It has literally, Rebecca, I'm a movie guy. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. And for anyone kind of my age group or just who loves movies in general, we watched The Terminator, right? They told us what was going to happen. And I'm telling you right now,
the machines are taking over.
The machines are about to rise. Like, I, listen, I mean, the internet came first, right? And that was like information immediately, right? And social media, everything is just easy. Then, you start to see robotics take off. Well, this artificial intelligence, Chat GPT, can't even tell you. So, for those of you who haven't had a chance to at least familiarize yourself with, artificial intelligence or open source or Chat GPT, this is essentially technology that leverages any and all information that is available on the web, and it is able to compose, think, create almost anything, almost as well as a human. It can convey feelings, emotions, intensity, empathy, apathy. So let me get a couple examples. So uh, I saw it on the news, right? And then I said, well, let me just download it. So I did. Da, 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 da. Anyway, so I was having a really stressful day, and my wife and I were talking, and I was like, listen, I'm not upset with you. I'm just having a really tough day. So I said, here, I was playing around with this Chat GPT earlier, right? So I typed in how to communicate with your spouse when they're having a very difficult day at work. In 2 seconds, boom, it spit out like 10 things like, um, please understand that this is not about you. Your spouse is, I mean, it just goes through that. So now here's another thing. I have a buddy of mine who is an actor, and he's like trying to get me to go in with him on doing like a sketch or something. And um, I don't want to give any details about it, but it was essentially going to be like three guys talking about sports. And each one of us, there's three of us in this process, and each one of us was supposed to write like a script. And I've just been busy with work and a bunch of good stuff going on in my personal life. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, please write me a 5 to 7 minute funny skit about three guys who are in love with their football team. One guy's name is X. He loves the Dallas Cowboys. The second guy, I just did that. I just told him what I wanted and said the sketch needs to be funny, witty, the characters making fun of each other in a respectful fashion, and it needs to be backed in actual facts and statistics. I hit enter. 10 seconds later, it gave me a full script. Person A showing apathy, person B as he nods his head, and then what their line was. This, I'm hearing
Incredible.
incredible. If you want to know your house, please write me a listing for my home. It is at this address. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a 2-car garage in this neighborhood. Hit enter, boom, does it all for you. Essentially, it's not just a virtual assistant. It's essentially, it does it for you. Like Microsoft, we have our own, I shouldn't even say that, but Microsoft has its own version of it called Copilot. And I've taken a look at that. And this can even create like slides for you. Some people hate creating like PowerPoint slides. You can actually go into that version of it, say, create me a slide on a particular product, technology, solution. It'll create slides. I mean, the technology, and again, I'm no expert on it, but I can tell you right now, Chat GPT and open source and AI, this is going to revolutionize the way we do life in every single fashion. And I'm not saying this to be funny. I was smiling earlier, but this is going to impact, I would say, at a minimum, 30% of the workforce.
I've heard that number before. Yeah, I've heard that number before. I think, before people get crazy about, worrying about whether or not it's going to take your job, I would say get familiar with the product. What can you do to use the product to your advantage?
Right.
But at the same time, I do also wonder, what are what are we blind to about it right now? Meaning, are there things that it can also be beyond job impacting? What are the other negatives that could possibly?
I mean, think about it. Like if you're, let's say you're in law school, right? I mean, or let's say you're in college or some form of higher education, and you need to write a thesis. It can do it for you. Write me a thesis on this, and it'll do it for you. I mean, Rebecca, there is not one single thing you can ask it to do that it can't do it. If it's an analytical request, it can do it. But the thing that really just blows my mind is that for things that require a certain amount of emotion, compassion, empathy, apathy, whatever, it can change and wordsmith the content to meet what you're asking to do. And even when the first version comes out, you can say, "Hey, that's a little too harsh. Can you tone it down a little?" And it will give you a secondary version of it with a more softer delivery or softer tone. Again, I'm no expert on it, but I would say, to your point, keep your eyes on this. I don't think it's like, hey, let's get worried and we're gonna all lose our jobs. But I would say this is one of those things that you don't want. You want to find out about it more or sooner than later than waiting for this technology to become a mainstay in the way we do life, and you're playing catch up. That's all I can say.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yep.
I think that the first night that you and I learned about it, I think we were on the phone together. We were on a Zoom together or something, and I played around with it a little bit that night, and I haven't done much more than that. But yeah, it is very interesting how well it takes direction and edits, right?
Mhm.
Because I remember asking it to do something, um, and it gave me something that it just felt very clinical, if you will. And then I said, can you do this? Can you do this with a more excited tone? And then it came back with, a better version of it that was, much more compelling. And it was like, wow, that's so incredible how well it takes direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, and I think I think it's also going to be a great problem solver.
Yeah.
Eventually as well. I think, like when you think about like phone trees today, most people get super upset when they have to go through a phone tree. And I think it's going to solve a lot of those problems to where you're not anywhere near as upset, because I think you're going to get exactly what you need,
Yeah.
a lot quicker. So that the better you are on the front end of asking the questions, will make it more powerful. So I think
Yeah.
it's, I think there can be a lot of cool things that come out of it, but I also am definitely curious to see,
Where it goes.
where it goes. Yeah.
Well, I think that's called Terminator 2. I'm joking. I'm joking, but no, it's just I'm one of these people that it's just one of those few things that just really has me. I don't want to say mesmerized, but just intrigued at a level in terms of just what it can do and where it's
Yeah.
headed. So,
Yeah.
like anything of power, I'd imagine you're going to hear from both sides saying whether it just needs to remain as it is, or if there needs to be governance and things of that nature. Just because anything like this that can revolutionize the world, can always be used for bad intentions or more nefarious reasons. So, all right, well, we just had episode 3 get posted, and for those of you who had a chance to listen to that episode, I think towards the end, we were talking about the recent shootings that had involved children across the U.S. And then we talked a little bit about just how common and this problem is. It's happening more and more frequently. Well, here we are again. This same situation has popped up again, and it's in our home state of Texas.
Again.
Yeah, and my heart is breaking right now, and again, because I have a child, I have older boys, older children, and they're in various cities. And as a father, I feel like my job, as long as I'm alive, is to protect. And I know I can't protect my grown children the way I can my younger child, but I still feel the need to be a person that can provide information, as well as, excuse me, so I got a little background noise here. So give me 1 second. I'll try to turn this down. Well, there we go. Anyway, so I try to be someone that feels like I'm protecting, but I just don't know, because right now it's the most random place. We were having church. We were having situations where
I think you should just, what is going on behind you?
I'm telling you what's going on, Rebecca. I'm gonna tell you exactly what's going on. I was talking noise about AI and in battery,
The
and y'all,
machines are
I'm telling you, it's going on.
this man is struggling. Woo!
I'm usually pretty good with electronics. I have television on. I don't know what the hell. I'm telling you, the machines heard me. Maybe I say, "Oh, really? You want to know what we can do? Watch this."
Okay, wait. Can we do a quick sidebar? Do you remember when we were having lunch a few weeks ago, and I
Uh,
told you about how my Siri sucks? Like she's so mean to me, and I said I didn't used to have this problem when I had it as the Australian guy. Like he was awesome. I loved my Siri when he was an Australian guy. And you said change it back. Why do you have it on as the girl who's mean to you? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I changed it back to my Australian guy. I'm back to loving Siri again. My Siri is incredible. He loves me. He's so good to me. He did everything I asked him to do with a smile, and
uh,
couldn't be
uh,
happier.
Well, I am glad that your technology, your devices seem to be working for you. Mine seem to be on
You-
mutiny right now.
I think you've been talking a little too much smack about technology.
Did I say how much I love technology? How much I love artificial intelligence? Okay, let's
Okay,
let's get back on the main
back
course,
to it.
and
Back to it.
a little humor there. And listen, we all could look for more reasons to smile and find more reasons to laugh, but this is not a laughing matter. Here outside of Dallas at a outlet mall, a young man,
Alan,
33 years old, here in Texas, opened fire. We don't know if it was intentional in terms of who the target or if it was just random, but he murdered 8 people. Several others are still hospitalized at this
Yeah.
point.
I think seven. I think 7 others are in the hospital. 3 are critical condition.
Yeah, and of course, he was killed by a police officer who happened to be, in the vicinity. So thank God, because you never know how bad these tragedies can be in
Yeah.
terms of loss of
Yeah.
life without someone intervening. And I know you hear that one argument, like if more good guys had guns, then this would happen. I'm sorry. Again, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I just don't subscribe to that mentality, right? The challenge is that it's just no way the current policies and laws that we have today have no measure for screening people that are mentally unfit to have weapons of war in their hand. Now that's one argument. The other reason is like, why do we need weapons of war in regular Americans' hands? But that's a different conversation that we can debate. But I mean, this is happening every week. We do not want The Last Remark to be a show where we're just continuously talking about gun violence and political divide, but this has to stop. This is only happening in the United States of America. There is no other civilized country on the face of the earth where this is even remotely a challenge. This is a U.S.
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, it's egregious. It's egregious how it overwhelmingly happens day after day after day after day. I think I saw a stat that we're now at 200 mass murders or mass shootings, and we're at like 127 days into
Yeah.
the calendar year. So
Yeah.
so that's I mean we're getting close to a day territory with these stats. Like it's not good, and we've got to be able to have conversations around responsible gun ownership. That conversation has got to be had at a legislative level.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Again, this individual was 33. We don't have a ton of background on him so far. I know the news outlets or just the news channels they want to be very careful about putting, inaccurate information out and having to walk it back. So I can respect and appreciate that piece of it. But,
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
Yeah.
the 2 pieces of information that's out now, his name, and then of course, you have, his age would, I believe he's 33. His last name was Garcia. I don't want to make an assumption. I'd imagine he's of Latin descent. Not to say that that matters, but I know it's traditionally when you hear these things, you kind of automatically think, hey, okay, white male is the perpetrator. But you're starting to see this happen across multiple communities now. It's not. I mean, even the guy from Cleveland, Texas, who they just caught, right? Supposedly asking someone, he's shooting his AR-15 in his front yard. He's drunk. Neighbors come over and say, hey, can you stop shooting? Our baby's trying to sleep. He goes into their house, murders 5 of their family, and then he's on the run for like 6 days. So what is it? Like,
Yeah.
are we just going to continue to let this happen?
Okay, so here's something else that people are going to make an argument about. So perhaps the issue is so much bigger than guns. Definitely, from me, I believe we need some better, stricter, more enforceable, background checks, red flag laws, things of that nature. But okay, so just right before we started recording today, a story broke about a gentleman out of also Texas, shocking, Brownsville, and the driver is facing at least one charge of reckless driving and also being treated for injuries. He plowed into, so Brownsville is what you would call a border town in Texas. And so there's a large community of immigrants that have, descended on a lot of the border towns. So he, in his car, plowed into a group of pedestrians, and I don't know what the count is for fatalities, but it's quite a few.
7 at last read was at 7.
So so people are also going to make the argument. We talk about guns, and we talk about but what about when people are using things like their cars?
Right. I mean,
to accomplish sort of that same theory of people are here that I don't like, I don't want to see, and this is my choice in getting rid of them. You look in San Francisco, and there was the founder of the Cash App that was recently stabbed to death, right? So it's like people are going to start to make excuses that bad people are going to do. If you take away the guns, they'll pick up a knife. If you take away the knives, they'll use their car. If you take away the cars, they'll pick up a rock. Like, if bad people have intention of doing bad things, they're going to figure out a way to do bad things.
I agree to an extent, right? I think if somebody wants to do harm, they're going to find a way. If somebody wants to kill an individual, even if that individual is protected, if that person is willing to trade their lives for the other person, they have a much higher probability of doing so.
Yeah.
My counter argument there is more around the fact that guns, there's an emotional part of that, right? Like or sensational part of that. And let me kind of walk you through what I mean by that. When people think about, hey, I want to go, even just watching video games, there's no such thing as a video game that involves a car running people over. Well, you got Grand Theft Auto, but that's not the objective of the video game. But you do have Call of Duty. Those games are, they're put in a very young age. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, I have to clarify, because I am somebody who's never played or even really seen Grand Theft Auto. What is the goal? If it's, because I thought that was the goal.
No, the goal is getting away with robbery, stealing cars, Grand Theft Auto. So that's that's the primary. Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know much get into that. There's a lot of grown folks and stuff that goes into that. But one of the other things, it does involve violence against people, pedestrians, cops, etc.
Right.
Now, what I'm saying,
like Call of Duty is what you would call a first-person shooter.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, right. And the point I'm
meaning that you when you're playing the game, you feel like you are actually shooting and killing
people. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay.
That's what it is. Exactly. So kids are exposed to that early often. When I think about these shooters, right, there's a reason they go to guns, right? Because it's a machine that is designed to kill large numbers of individuals in a small amount of time. It is designed to do just that.
Yeah.
Cars, depending on how that situation goes, they take time to, get enough momentum. They take time. I just don't think, when I think about these acts of terrorism, you don't really think about cars. There are a few incidences where it happened, but it's so small in comparison to the number of incidents where a gun or a semi-automatic weapon were used to murder people. So I don't want to make that excuse. Same thing with knives, right? Sure, somebody wants to pick up a knife and start stabbing people. Depending on the knife, how many people they stab, it's not going to be anywhere near, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to kill
Right.
the time it took to kill 7 people.
Right.
You can't
It's
physically do that with a knife.
it's the argument that people make all the time when they talk about the Second Amendment, that it was written in an era where the guns were muskets that took, I don't know, I don't remember what the average time it was, but like a minute and a half or something
Yeah, that's
to
the
to
recycled. Yeah.
to reload. Like it would shoot one bullet and then it would take you a long period of time to reload it. And obviously we've gotten so much more sophisticated
Uh-huh.
with our
Weaponry.
armory. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. So no, I mean, they're going to come out with that as excuse, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that, if you're not able to drink until you're 21, why in the hell are you able to buy a weapon that is designed to kill, mass casualty weapon? Why are you able to buy that? Like, I
Yeah.
just don't. It's hard for me to square that circle. It's hard for me to understand that we're saying that, mental instability is at an all-time high. Mental health issues are at an all-time high, but yet we have not incorporated a comprehensive measure in which, if somebody has committed an act of violence or somebody is going through some care, or just some way that our back end systems can talk within the respect of privacy, but at least try to use technology and modernity to mitigate. You can't stop everybody. If 100 people want to commit a mass murder with a gun, a good number are going, but you can still cut that number. You can chunk into that number. You can slice out a part of those people who wouldn't have access to these guns, right? Because if somebody goes out and buys an AR-15, and then the next week they go out and buy, 10 boxes or 10 boxes of rounds, and then the next week they go out and buy, militia gear and a bulletproof vest, where are they going? That is all government issue when you
Yeah.
go to fight abroad. That is not something you need on American
As a
soil.
as a civilian.
Civilian.
Yeah. I mean, but it is America. You are allowed to buy a bulletproof vest. Should you want one, you're allowed to buy um, as much ammunition as you want. I okay. I think I want to switch the focus from guns to mental health, and I also want to make a request for anybody who happens to be following us. If you know anybody um, at a level to speak as an expert on mental health, and even if we got specific here in Texas, because so this is why I wanted to bring this up. So Greg Abbott is our governor, and he did two things. He um, decreased, if not completely cut, resources that were going towards mental health, while simultaneously opening up the ability for people to permitless carry. Meaning, so previously you had to actually get a permit. You had to go to a class. There was like a cooling off period. There was like a whole bunch of things and now it's literally, you will hear people describe it as wild, wild west. Like you do you boo, with regards to, with guns and any type of gun and any amount of ammo. So, but when we talk about mental health, because, a lot of the shootings that we have seen, it's kind of the main thing that people will say, yeah, that person was a little mentally unstable. And they make that distinction pretty quick from when the incident happens. It, breaks in the media. It's a real quick thing. And Governor Abbott is also real quick to use that. And it's like, Okay, so if that is the case, if that is what you're saying, then why have we been cutting down on mental health services? So this is it's a bigger conversation. I want to have an expert who can talk to us, make and make the numbers make sense, make the because and here's why it's so interesting. This is where I really think we could have a great conversation around this. Is
Uh-huh.
when I was little,
Okay.
and again I was born in the very late '60s. Um, when I was little, there were still homes that people got sent to if they were mentally unstable.
Okay.
Um, and then there were a lot of stories of abuse and neglect and just horrible things that happened to the residents of the mental homes. And there may be a better word to describe what those were called, but from my memory, from that time. And then at some point in time, those things went away because I think there was too much of a stink. There was too much of a like bad things that were happening to the people who were unable to
Right.
defend themselves, right?
Right.
Because they're medicated, because they are mentally unstable, like all of the things. They just it was almost as if the people running it, and the workers just had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted to do, and were not being held accountable, and it's really hard. Again, it's like one of those things where I can't imagine how hard a job like that would be, but so I almost wonder, is it worth having a discussion of, do we need to simultaneously house and take care of people who are experiencing issues?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think
How do you feel about that? First off, like as a
oh,
taxpayer,
I
as
mean
a
that. I mean, yeah, because I feel like, well, let me kind of back up, make sure I'm clear on my message or my response to that question. I think there should always be resources and facilities for individuals that are struggling with mental health, but I think there's different degrees, right? And I'm not saying that any is any less impactful to a person or a family than others, but there are people that have like really, really difficult, challenging mental instability, right? They can't deal with reality. And I think you have individuals who go through um, some type of a period in their life where maybe it was a lost loved one, or they didn't feel a certain amount of attention or love or care. And then they just kind of morph into a version. They still have their mental capacity. Like they can still read, write, they can drive. I mean, they're there. It's more of an emotional thing that's driving their mental. So I think that's the part of it, right? You have
okay,
you have a clinical mental instability, and then you have an emotional one. And I
okay,
think those are two different. I think those are two different challenges right there,
okay,
right? What you described coming up, earlier in the segment, I feel like that's more aligned to folks that were dealing with more, clinical mental issues, right? They
okay,
really could not function in a normal society in any shape or form, or at least or very, very limited capacity. I think where we're seeing the bigger challenge and where we're seeing the more scale in terms of mental instability or mental health issues, it's on the emotional side. And that's being propagated and perpetuated through things like social media, right? That need for attention, the need for instant gratification. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that have shifted and made people that typically just would have soldiered through life and some of the challenges that they went through as a teenager and just kind of came out on the other side of it. Like, okay, hey, I learned a lot as a teenager. I think it's catching a lot of those younger folks at an earlier age. And we're telling everybody it's okay not to be okay, which I'm a firm believer in. We're telling people that, mental health issues are on the rise. And it's just a certain amount of people that are just going to say, oh, that's what's wrong with me. I have a mental health issue. And they're just going to kind of dig their heels into it
right.
because that's essentially what we're
Yeah, I
telling
mean,
people.
some people have Parkinson's, some people have, you know, spine issues. Like this is another part of your health, just like anybody else who's suffering with a health issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish there wasn't so much stigma that had been attached to that in earlier eras. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong there. Just like just like you jump on a treadmill, when you're when you're trying to keep your heart rate healthy. There's no difference in having a therapy session to keep your mind healthy. Absolutely nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I think when I was just kind of watching a movie as a child, I think about, people in straight jackets and, everybody on staff wearing all white and people locked up. It's almost like a nicer version of jail, so to speak. So, isolation and not being able to interact with other people, that's one thing. And I think there was probably a big need for reform, to your earlier point. But the general question that you asked, yeah, I do feel like there should be more help. I don't know if that's like inpatient, facilities or just more resources that people can talk to,
Yeah.
meet with, speak with to help them through the periods. Because it doesn't seem like it's slowing down, because a lot of these shooters that we're seeing, going back to the shooting situation, these people are just something triggered them early on in life. And they just felt like, hey, I have a mental issue. I'm not happy. People don't love me. I don't feel what I want to feel from others, or maybe life isn't treating me fair. And the big part of it, Rebecca, is just the fact that this stuff happens so frequently. It's the go-to. It's
Yeah.
the it is the go-to thing. I am not fitting into this society. I feel like an outcast, a leper. I feel like I
Welcome
don't
to the club,
belong.
buddy.
I feel like I don't belong.
Yeah.
Um, well, look, somebody just shot somebody up. Maybe I should do that. So again, I'm not trying to say people are being copycats, but they're being influenced by it, because
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
you're seeing the number scale. Because
Yeah.
every time somebody who would be a mass murderer, they
Yeah.
turn on the television, they see that somebody just did it. It's like, you know what? I can't do it anymore. It's my turn.
Have you heard that there are other countries that are putting the United States on a like a travel watch, where they're like, "Hey,
No.
be very careful. Be very careful when you visit the United States, because mass shootings are freaking out of control." I mean, I told you we're almost up to 2 a day.
Yeah.
The stats are we are getting close. We are so close to hitting 2 a day. Okay, here was another thing that I was thinking about. Hold on. Ah, man, I just lost it. Oh, um, okay, here's the other thing. When you read the stories, you watch the news, you hear about something, um, it's almost always men. Almost always. Like, I know whenever I watch a story and something has happened and it's a woman, and typically, since the pandemic, my husband and I, we watch the nightly news together. So we're typically sitting at our kitchen table, watching the news together. And when it's a woman, I always go, it's crime of passion. Because if it's a
Right.
woman, typically she's been scorned somehow. It's a crime of passion.
Mhm.
When it's men, it could be a crime of passion, but it could be, any number of
Yeah.
other things, right? It could be,
Mhm.
like you said, it's like, I'm an outsider, I was bullied, I was abused, by a family member, like, a church member, whatever. It's always like, there's something, but when it's a woman, it's so I was thinking, I I I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to start a movement where men have like a it's going to sound weird, like a therapy group, like a
Oh,
I
it's
don't know,
not weird at all. I
like
think I know where
like
you're going.
like an AA, right? But you're not addicted to anything. You just are like, man, I just need to get with some other men and get my head on straight. I just need to, I have a little sit down where you have like like a small group, if you will, where it's people can be honest, and they can feel safe, that that they're whatever they talk about won't be won't leave
Mhm.
that conversation. And where basically you can hold each other accountable, and you can check in on each other, and and just be a source of a good foundation and encouragement. And um I don't know, what do you think about?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a big need for male mentorship, male, male to male. When I say that, like, I just feel like the way today's society is set up, if you're, just the average working person, and I'm just gonna speak. This is not a sexist comment, but men generally feel like we need to be the protectors and providers of our family. A lot of men, especially when I remember growing up, they worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make certain that their family have the bare minimums or what they need. That left a lot of time for their boys, their children, especially the boys, to have, you know, free time to connect with other groups. And then they start, going to the streets or start tagging along with the wrong folks. And next thing you know, they're getting their influences and their thoughts about life from the wrong sources and the wrong people. Or you, on the flip side of it, you have men who have very successful but high demanding careers that pull them away from the home, a lot. So I think there's a big absenteeism in terms of just like active fatherly involvement and engagement. And I don't think it's something that many fathers are desiring. I think it's just the fact that just society and just what's considered the normal workday for the average person is just so much different from what it was 30, 40 years ago. But going back to your question, yes, I feel like I can speak for myself. I I I should not be here talking to you right now. I should be dead. I should be in prison.
Mhm.
I should be in a wheelchair. I grew up in a very, very crime infested area, drugs, guns, alcohol. I had family members that were on drugs. I had every wrong influence around me. All I had to do was just open my eyes and just gravitate to whichever one. I had every reason in the world to go down the wrong path in life. I just was fortunate enough to have people, as particularly positive male figures, enter my life at a very early age, and I latched on to that. And I just continued to latch on that onto that until I got to an age to where I was able to get, some traction of my own. And now I feel like my duty is to do
Yeah.
that same thing for other young men coming up behind me. But
Same.
that's where
Same,
a lot
same,
of these
same.
that's where you if you start really digging back into the backgrounds of some of these young men, I
Yep.
promise you there are going to be a lot of similarities. Absentee father. I mean, when I say that, doesn't mean the father wasn't around. I mean, in the house, it just means they just weren't actively involved. They weren't at the games. They weren't playing catch. They weren't having Sunday talks at the family dinner table, discussing things. Hey, son, what's going on? Like, I feel like a lot of that was missing or is missing today. And if you start looking at the commonalities between some of these male shooters, I bet you'll see some common
Yeah.
denominators there in terms of where, what type of positive male role models and influences were in these young men's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost feel like I said, let's start a movement. I mean, even if we have to, um, you know, uh, open up an Instagram page where it's like, jump on anytime. Like somebody will always be here. Somebody will always be manning it. And you jump on anytime you need help.
That wouldn't be a bad ideal at all, because I just feel like, and right now, I mean, there's a whole nother topic, but there's just a lot of distractions, a lot of noise
Yeah.
out there. And I just want to go back to this whole internet thing.
Yeah.
Social media is, man, the fears that we had
Yeah.
about Madonna and Prince raising kids, watching MTV in the 80s. I mean, it's 20x now. Like, the internet and social media
Yeah.
have such a profound impact
Yeah.
on what our children are consuming, the values that they adopt at such a young age. And if you're not an active parent in their lives, unfortunately, it's just going to give them the space to gravitate to some of the more negative things. And I think
Yeah.
that's what leads these kids to go down these dark paths.
And you know what else I think is interesting too is that, especially with social media, is you might have a lot of people that follow you. You may be following a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's very isolating. It's very
Oh, God, yeah.
even if you're engaged in communication with people, it's still incredibly isolating. And I think we have got to get a grip on. And again, we're coming out of the pandemic. I know that the world has been a different place for the past 3 years. Um, but we've got to get a grip on isolation and what that can do to you. And I told you at the beginning of this, when we were introducing ourselves, that I tend to look at things from a Christian lens. And when I say that, part of me wants to cringe. I look at things through a lens of how Jesus spoke about things. He needed us to. He commanded us to live in community, to bear with one another. And I truly believe that isolation is a trick of the devil, that he is constantly telling you that you need to be alone, you need to be alone, you need to be alone. And then you get so alone, you freak out and you do something horrible.
Do something bad,
Right. Yeah.
It's a pretty, I mean, guy, the challenge is there's just so many, radiations from the core issues there. And, I mean, I just continuously, so to go back to your point about a movement, I think so. I'd love to,
Yeah. We're gonna noodle on that.
yeah.
We're gonna noodle on that one,
Because I got
because
some,
I've got the Fierce organization, right? So we're taking care of our girls, and I think girls in general just we tend to gravitate towards each other. And I know that, like, you and I, we have a group of friends and we get together often, and we have a lot of our sort of mental health talks, if you will. Or even just whatever's bothering us. Like, when we're together as our little group, we can work through some issues. Somebody's having a career issue, we can work through that. Somebody's having an issue, with their spouse, we can help you work through that. We have our own little group that kind of takes care of each other.
yeah. And Rebecca, the crazy thing about it is everything that you just said, I've had a conversation with somebody about in the last 6 months. I've talked to somebody about their relationship and their marriage. I've talked to somebody about their careers. I've talked to you here about just, of a number of things in life. Yeah. And people are just, I guess I just never looked at it like that.
Yeah,
Right?
we're
Having kind of a,
we're hungry. We're hungry for that human connection, to feel seen, to feel heard. So this is also my plea for anybody who's watching this, man. Connect with some people, especially the ones that you feel like have been pulling away from you. I have somebody in my life that um, I feel like I was this person's mentor, and then they pulled away, um, and they do suffer with some mental health issues, and I don't ever want to be part of the problem that sends them in a spiral. But um, it's a hard balance. But check in on your people, man. And it's more than just, hey, how are you doing? Make time, sit down, connect, look each other in the eye. Um, it's necessary. That's how we're going to be a better society, in my opinion.
yeah, no, totally agree. All right. Well, I know we're at that point in time where it's that time to go into last remarks. So I kicked it off with, well, actually, you kicked it off with kitchen table talk. So I'll close it out with my last remarks. And I think to your point, I'm just going to continue with that, right? Leverage the people in your circle. You're not alone. There are people out there that love you, care about you, want to see you happy, and they may not know that you're going through something. And I'm speaking from experience here. I have people in my life that I love, and brothers that have struggled about things and went through painful points in life, and they just never mentioned anything about it, right?
Yeah.
And I hear about it weeks and months after the fact, and like, hey, you could have called me. We could have talked about that. So I'm putting the onus on both parties, right? Checking in on your people, right? If you know somebody mentioned to you they had something on the horizon that might be a challenge that they would be facing, just checking how did that go, or how did you land, or you were worried about your job, how did that work? Like, check in on your people, right? Or maybe they were having a bad time with their significant other, checking in on them. And then on the other flip side of that coin is, if you have something that you're struggling with, don't feel like you have to bear it all by yourself. I mean, obviously you have prayer and you have meditation and you have tools that you can use, but there is nothing that will, take the place of just sometimes just talking about your things. Listen, I talk to my therapist every 2 weeks. I ain't ashamed to say it. And since doing that, my life has been so much better, because I'm able to take all of the clutter that's in my mental box of junk, and she helps me sort it out, right? And understand what needs to be folded up and put aside and sent to Goodwill, and what I need to fold up and put in the drawer. So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And honestly, that's my last remark.
Okay, that's incredible. And I hope that there are some low cost options for people who need help. I don't know, but if we have a resource, we're gonna attach it for you. If there's some sort of a, you need to go to somebody, you need to have a conversation with somebody. Hopefully, we can find something we can give you. As for me, for my last remark is, like Marcus said, check in on your people, check in on the folks that you know and love, and who might need somebody to reach out to them, and then also check in on your people who maybe have ideals that are a little screwed up. I think about that older gentleman and how his family pulled away, but nobody stopped him. Nobody sort of explained, listen, you continue to do this, behave like this, you yourself are going to end up in jail. I can't imagine. My dad is 78. I can't imagine my dad going to jail at that age. And right? So it's like, love your family enough to be honest with them. And yeah, I don't know, man, just speak up. That's definitely speak up. See something, say something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on behalf of Rebecca Kahak and Marcus Jewett, we thank you for joining us again. We look forward to hearing your feedback. You can reach us at I'll let Marcus close this out. He does this one so well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you do. You got all the things down.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm the social media guy. Anyway, so follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. It's the same handle, at The Last Remark Podcast. I'll say it again, at The Last Remark Podcast. We even have a link tree that will feed you to a site that we can easily get to each and every one of our social media. So, as promised, we are going to have our audio versions available on Spotify and on Apple Music. It's coming any day, but hey, you get a chance to see these handsome faces on our YouTube channel, and we'll continue to do that. All right, so a couple of episodes that are up and coming. We have our episode with Austin City Council member Mackenzie Kelly, so that's going to be a really, really cool interview. So be on the lookout for that one. And then we will be speaking with two body coaches. You may be familiar with Beachbody on Demand. They have changed and rebranded themselves to Body. But Manisol Gavin and Yvette Hooker will be with us also. And we'll take a chance or take some time to interview them and just kind of get their perspective. They started a side business working through Body that they've really been able to branch out. And the general goal here is obviously making a little money on the side. But where the real reward comes from is helping people transform their lives through, exercise, clean and healthy habits, and just eating right. So, hey, again, just looking forward to having some different types of guests on coming up. But listen, if you have something you want to talk about, a topic or something that you feel is you want to speak to, bring it to us at the Last Remark Podcast. You can IM us on any one of the social media platforms, and we will definitely respond to you. We want to hear from those folks. And to Rebecca's point a few moments ago, if you have any feedback, something you want to see different, or something you want us to kind of whizzle up a little bit, hey, we're down for taking a little feedback and giving, coming with a remix version like Puff Daddy. So anyway, all right, y'all, it's been great. Talk to you soon.
Peace.